Mondays with Monsignor Pope, here on Morning Joy, where truth matters.
Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and immigration is back in the headlines, probably because we are in another election cycle, but we're kind of in new territory here with Haitians who have been relocated to that small town of Springfield, Ohio. Locals are saying there's more crime, more car accidents, more what they may or may not be doing with domestic animals, but the town seems to be just completely overwhelmed. So what do we think, or what should we think about this as Catholics? Thankfully, we have Monsignor Charles Pope to help kind of break this down and guide us through this. Good morning, Monsignor.
Good morning.
Yes. So I guess to kind of get the grounding here, what does our Catholic Church say about immigration or illegal immigration?
Well, the Catechism is very balanced. It's just one paragraph, but it says it all. It says, in effect, it says that the nations, especially those nations that are prosperous, should be generous in receiving people who, come to its shores to seek a better life. But it also goes on to admonish those who come to follow just laws and to seek to adopt well, it doesn't say the culture, but it says, the ways and the laws of the receiving nation. So it's a kind of a mutual, there's an idea of openness. And then there's also the idea of a request that those who come would both obey laws when they come, as far as getting in, but also obey all the just laws and customs of the receiving country. And so, again, it doesn't mean you have to abandon your culture, but it means that you ought to accept the general norms and ways of the nation that you enter. So I find it very balanced. Unfortunately, even Catholic leaders, when they talk about it, don't sound very balanced sometimes. And so, at any rate, that's...
Yeah, I know it sounds so simple the way the Catechism puts it, but then yes, it's politicized through all of the parties, and there's I don't know how to go about as a Catholic. You go into the polls to vote. It's like, okay, well, great, here we go. What's really sad too is that Port-au-Prince in Haiti is a complete mess. Like, it's ran by criminals now. It's incredibly violent there, and I can't blame people escaping that and coming into the U.S. And there's a lot of Catholics there in the crosshairs, and I'm sure there's a lot of Catholic Haitians who found their way to Ohio. It certainly complicates things, does it not?
Yeah, and again, I suspect the whole thing's been a little overblown. There might have been some unfortunate truth to the story, and I think, of course, usually as is always the case with our media, they're all just taking sides rather than trying to get to the facts. But at the end of the day, I do think that there are going to be these cultural things. I mean, look, even in Chinatown, I'd walk through. I walk down, and it's a little hard for me to see ducks with their necks, hanging up there, all butchered and dripping with blood, or to go into Middle Eastern market when I'm in the Holy Land and find, really grim, just, things that we just don't like to look at here in America. Yeah. There are countries and places that eat dog and cat, Indians are shocked that we eat cows. It's all, these things are cultural, and we have to work through them. I know that St. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, counseled great charity when it came to these questions of food. If eating meat's going to cause my brother to be scandalized, then I won't eat meat. That's kind of the situation where we want to be, as I say, we want to try to learn to be sensitive, and yet also accept the fact that these things change a little bit as we come and go as well. So again, all that stuff is, I think, a lot of heat and not a whole lot of light. But I don't think, that this situation in Springfield is currently widespread in our culture. There may be a certain local situation that's come up. That said, look, I'm going to just say, I don't know where we would be in our country right now without our immigrants. Go Ronald Reagan there, He said, look, if the population isn't growing, neither is the economy. We decided that somehow extra human beings or fellow human beings are the enemy, as if they only bring cost and they don't bring resources. And this just isn't the case. And, as I say, right now, our birth rates are, just in terms of native-born Americans, and that's from a lot of different races, not just white people. Native-born is not code language for white people. There's a lot of people of a lot of different ethnic groups that have been born here and been here for generations, including African Americans, whose birth rates are horribly low. And if it wasn't for immigration, we'd be in real trouble. And we wouldn't be able to staff many of our jobs and other things. So I would just say there's a lot of talents. I believe that most of our immigrants, thanks be to God, come to us with a Christian and Catholic background. They're generally strong in their family values. They're hardworking. I'm amazed at some of the folks who are from, Central and South America who come here and, gosh, they work so hard. And so again, I want to just say all those things. And yet I also think it's something that we have to be understanding that there are places that are overwhelmed. And that's why, again, following just laws and so on has its place. And nobody, even someone who's very optimistic about immigration as I am, likes to see this just complete violation of civil law and a total lack of, it's very frustrating that our own country won't enforce its laws. But can I tell you also something, Keith, just something that's not new? Go with me to the year 1969. Okay. And we're on the Texas border, somewhere near El Paso. And there are three politicians that are leading a protest. The three of them are Ralph Abernathy Jr., who was a civil rights leader who'd worked with Martin Luther King, who'd been, assassinated the year before. So you got Ralph Abernathy Jr., Robert Mondale, who would later be the Democratic, candidate for president and so on. And also we would see there Cesar Chavez. And they were leading a protest arguing that the United States government wasn't doing enough to protect the borders. Now, flip-flop, why was this? Well, Cesar Chavez was trying to organize, laborers. And he was trying to, and of course, lots of people coming across the border illegally drove down wages and made the farm holders and others, much more powerful in the argument than they should be. There was a glut of labor. And so, what happens? People work for next to nothing just to get some money. So you see, these things change politically. They flip-flop, they go Republican, Democrat, all this kind of stuff. Somewhere along the line, the Catholic Church just stands still and it all flip-flops, all swirls around us. And Catholics all take sides on this thing because of their politics rather than their faith. Now, come on, the faith is clear that we should be generous, but it's also clear that we need to follow just and reasonable norms and laws. And gosh, if we would just find that balance, there's always, and by the way, there's always tension and balance. It's not just like this perfect set point. Think of a person up on a unicycle or a bike. They're not just rigidly in one fixed position. There's a range of motion in balance. And that's what I kind of think. I just wish we could, all of us, our Catholic bishops and the Pope and others, as well as all the way down to the laity, we could all just find that balance and stick with the teaching and say, find the balance.
Yes, I love how you said that there's always tension and balance.
Yes.
I guess a question, how should a regular Catholic respond when their town is overran with migrants?
I'm sorry, I'm coughing a little this morning. Could you repeat it, Keith?
Oh, no, that's okay. Yeah. What are we as regular Catholics to do, or how do we respond when, let's say, we're living in a border town when it's overrun by migrants?
Yeah. Well, of course, look at me sitting up here, in D.C. That's not generally my issue, although we have a lot of, immigrants. We know that it's spread through the country. Let's just say wherever you are, try your best to love those men and women, all right? They are often there out of desperation. Who gets up and just leaves their house and home, country, everything that's familiar to them, that's not something most of us would want to do. And most of them who do it out of real desperation. Sure, there's certain criminals. There's going to be certain drugs, but they're the minority. We know that. Try to love them. Don't hate them personally. this whole system is out of whack. So vent your anger a little bit more toward maybe working with the political process as well as the practical, things of the state to help regularize it. But that's the first thing I'd say. Just remember, these are men and women who deserve your love and respect, and then do the best you can. But I do think we have to work hard, because it's not serving them either that we're not prepared to receive them. It's not helping. It's kind of I would argue, a crass political move to try to build up what are perceived votes. And even that's not panning out. A lot of these immigrants don't just routinely vote for one party or the other, and so I think somewhere that's to counsel again that careful balance of love of the individuals and, again, appropriate anger and resolve to fix a system that's broken.
So I guess a question, because I've seen bishops be outspoken about certain border policies that are going to be on a particular ballot. Now, they've been vocally against it, and they basically say, in a degree, like to not vote in this policy. As Catholics, are we called to comply or be obedient to this call to not vote for this, like a particular border policy?
Well, again, I think that we have to understand that a lot of this is what we would call prudential judgments. I don't know that we're going to find, like we do with the abortion issue, absolute right and wrong. How best to deal with the immigration policy will have certain, prudential qualities to it. And it's also, I think, more appropriately balanced with other political issues. So it's somewhere in here. I think, again, this is not so much an absolute right and wrong, say like abortion, but, reasonable people differ on how to solve the immigration issue. And yeah, I do think there's probably some who are just intentionally trying to keep it broken, keep the chaos. That's kind of part of the Marxist dialectic, just get in there, and the chaos is the answer. In other words, don't they know all the chaos that is causing? And the answer is, yeah, but that's the point. The chaos is the point. So I think we have to certainly avoid that. And but it's a little more subtle than that most of the time. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Thank you so much, Monsignor, for breaking this whole conversation down on immigration. Can't thank you enough. And we can also catch you, Monsignor, on The Quest, a Pilgrimage of Faith. Tuesdays and Fridays at 4 p.m. on the Guadalupe Radio Network. You can also stream it live on YouTube and all of the social medias, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But that is the end of our first hour of Morning Joy. We understand a lot of people are going to be listening to the Holy Mass coming up next. If that's the case, please keep us in your prayers. Otherwise, coming up next in the second hour, we're talking about sneaky evangelization, what that means, and we're going to talk more on Morning Joy, where truth matters, coming up right after this quick break.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.